Colin, as I mentioned, the Cavs didn't play well and lost Game 1. What were some reasons you saw that contributed to this loss?
So I think overall the moment was just too big for them, which is really unfortunate. I think, as we mentioned at the top, Donovan Mitchell was really the only one who showed up and understood what was happening and the impact of all of what needed to be done to get a win. And the effort, the physicality, the mentality, the emotional, the psychological, everything, Mitchell was present. And he had some missteps in a couple spots, but it was partially because nobody else was stepping up on that team. Darius was okay. Mobley and Allen were but it was really a team driven by Donovan. And I think that was a really big problem because everybody became really reliant on him. And it wasn't basketball. It was watching your best player, which we've seen before in Cavaliers history. We saw it every year that LeBron went to the playoffs. And some years it worked and some years it didn't. And Mitchell's never going to be a LeBron, but you can definitely have your players, your teammates, act similarly where you have them ball watch a lot and not do the extra little things to contribute. I think the biggest thing for me, and then I'll hand it off to you, that really came across was the lack of physicality between Allen and Mobley. They just were not setting screens well. They weren't getting people open. They were getting out-rebounded. And it wasn't just them getting out-rebounded because of the fact that Allen and Mobley weren't super physical. Then LeVert was letting bad offensive rebounds by him. Mitchell did that a little bit. Garland did that. Everybody that came in, they just were all getting out-physicaled. And I think a lot of that was because we weren't setting any type of tone or fighting back in any way in the second half. There was a little bit in the first half, but really once the second half started, the Knicks really just put it to us from a physical angle in every aspect of the game. And that's really everything, not everything I saw, but that's a little bit of what I saw in the sense of just why they weren't able to get the win.
Yeah, all great points. I think I have to start off by saying that last episode we mentioned the two Knicks players we were the most worried about, and it turned out to be very true. In the first half, Randall looked like he would be unstoppable and probably score 40 points before the end of the game. Thankfully, the Cavs figured him out and slowed him down in the second half, but then Brunson caught fire and had a majority of his points in the second half. And so they very frustratingly kept us at a distance, just a hand's distance most of the game. And we just could not get over the hump. If we got it within a tie or within a few points, we would be right there with a three-point shot or a bucket to take the lead, and we could not get it to go down. You know, I think we're going to talk about it in question 2, but the rotations were pretty rough. I think that glaringly for me in this game, the bench was kind of the scariest revelation for me, that we don't have one. And it's kind of scary because when you think about the first 25, 30 games at the beginning of the year, it felt like we were extremely deep, that we had a second and third string to lean on and to rotate certain guys around and kind of keep people fresh. And I think we had hoped that when Ricky Rubio came back, that would only become more true. And somehow, over the last couple of months, we've really become a starter-heavy team. And so I don't even really know how to identify a sixth man on this team. If Karis LeVert is going to fall off a cliff again, then instead of us winning this series in 5 or 6 games, we're going to lose it in 5 or 6 games because we don't have Kevin Love. Which I don't really know when I want to go off in this episode about his decision to leave and what that means for our prospects in these playoffs, both this series and any series after. But that was another thing that really stuck out to me in watching the game, that we were missing his veteran presence and his leadership off the bench, and we really shouldn't be missing it. I don't think the Cavs had any intention to not be using it right now. So to look back at the question, I think, because I know I don't want to get ahead of us onto the next one, it's easiest to, I think, just break down the stats to look at the fact that we were out-rebounded 51-38 and 17 offensive boards. Their small forward shooting guard in Hart had 10 rebounds. And that's just a team that understands that being scrappy in the postseason is what wins you games. And I just saw a team that had been there before and kind of was more calm and ready to perform. And the Cavaliers just kind of looked lost. They never really controlled the tempo. They never really had any offensive runs. They just kind of held on for dear life. And that was about the best I could say about it.
Yeah, we'll get into the rotations more. Just talking about the bench, like what you talked about with Josh Hart there, that was the other thing that was frustrating. It wasn't just that our bench wasn't scoring; they weren't scoring. Period. They weren't making shots. Jetty was the best contributor off the bench offensively, and then also Jetty took on the assignment of guarding Brunson. He wasn't amazing, but he put in the effort. And that was the thing that really frustrated me is Karis LeVert and Jetty are veterans. Rubio is a veteran. Dean Wade is not a veteran in the sense that they are, but he looked a little lost as well. And none of them were scrappy in any way. I mean, we've seen LeVert in previous games get offensive boards just out of nowhere. He'll just snag that. He wasn't boxing out his player. Come on. I don't play basketball. I never played basketball. I know that boxing out is one of the things that you learn on day one of Pee Wee basketball. Like, come on. That is a physical attitude of you have to make sure that they stay off the boards. You know they're the best, if not one of the best, offensive rebounding teams in the NBA. You know they're going to come in and do that. So it was that stuff, too. It was just a lack of overall understanding that they needed to be even scrappier against a team that relies on being scrappy to get wins. So what it was to me overall, and nobody's really said this, it was the Knicks won the way the Knicks wanted to win. The Knicks didn't look amazing, but that was a Knicks game, period, through and through. The Cavs put none of their stamp, nothing on there. Mitchell wasn't able to fight up that hill and get a win because the Knicks just were able to put all of their presence on the game, and it was frustrating.
Yeah, and when you look at the stats and see that Ricky Rubio had more rebounds than Dean Wade, LeVert, Osmond, and Garland, that's just pathetic.
And Rubio played horribly.
Yeah, he's still hobbling around out there. He was out there for 6 minutes. He got 2 boards. Come on, guys. Like, you've got to have your head on a swivel and look for your opportunities. It's not just about shooting the ball. The other thing I would mention is, it was a frustrating thing to kind of watch them have no pace to the game, that they never really dictated any of it, and that they, Allen and Mobley would kind of dribble underneath and kind of turn and throw the ball, especially Mobley would kind of throw the ball at the basket rather than any kind of finesse or touch. He just looked a little bit ready to jump out of his shoes. The fact that he was there. So I think that there's going to be a lot to calm down about and look forward to in Game 2. But Game 1 was difficult because it just didn't seem like we played our style of basketball at all. I think you're completely right. The Knicks came out and played their style of game, even to a level where they almost blew it at the end. Which I had turned to some Knicks fans behind me that I heard them go, "We're not the Knicks that we were 2 years ago," and I went, "Yes, you are." It was like I had verbal Tourette's. It just had to come out of my mouth, and then we almost beat them, because to me, all night long, I saw a team that was losing the game, not a team that was winning the game. If that makes sense, right? The Knicks were never really winning it; the Cavs were just losing it, and 19% from 3 in the first half. It just, come on, man. This team cannot shoot under 30% from 3 and be out-rebounded and win any games in this postseason.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!